Hello, Family Search community. It is Thursday, and you know what that means. We are having our weekly Family Search live stream to help all of you, all of us, learn how it is that we can continue our family search, family history journeys week by week, day by day, whatever it takes to be able to be pumped and to be informed about exactly what it is that's available to us, research techniques and just motivation from knowledgeable people like Raymond Nisbet, who are here to help us understand exactly what we can do to feel empowered and inspired to continue moving forward. Raymond, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
So are we. We've got 20 people that have joined in just 30 seconds. Can you believe it?
That's
We're so
awesome.
thrilled. So thrilled. Welcome to all of you. Well, today, welcome to those of you that are watching. You are in for a treat. And that's because today we will be learning all about how it is that you can trace your Irish ancestors and the ones that sailed into New York City. And it's actually, as Raymond will probably tell all of us and remind us, it's one of the major gateways to America and back in the day, and it kind of still is, but we're going to discover all about what it is that we can do to be able to find people that arrived to Ellis Island and beyond. And Raymond, reading just the synopsis of what you have to share with us, you're going to be talking about a lot of the documents and the strategies. And can I ask you just a quick question for those that are jumping on, Raymond? How much of this is applicable to ancestors from other, well, just like who perhaps followed similar journeys to this part of the world, to New York?
That is a great question. So I focus on the Irish, but it actually would be applicable to many other nationalities, and a lot of it's too depending on their religion. So a lot of the records in New York City deal with Catholic records for the Irish. But the patterns and the records that I'm showing specifically for the Irish, you can apply to many other immigrants who came into New York City and other big cities as well, like Philadelphia and Boston. You can use some of these same principles that I'm going to teach today.
That is the best news ever. So I'm going to do a little dance here because I have some ancestors that probably have patterns like what you're describing that I can learn from today. So I don't have any Irish ancestry, but what you're saying is that everyone can find some value
Oh,
in today's
absolutely.
live
Yeah.
stream and what you have to share. That is awesome. So if you do have Irish ancestry, find that shamrock emoji, all of you, and drop it in the comments. We want to make sure that that Irish ancestry is represented on social media. And if you don't, I just want to ask you, what countries or regions are you researching and are you interested in? Drop those in the comments. Again, what Raymond has to share with us is going to be applicable to a lot of us, regardless of whether or not we have Irish ancestry. And just a little bit about Raymond before we jump into things. Welcome, everyone. We have almost 100 people watching. Can you believe that, Raymond?
Great. That's exciting.
So, Raymond, I want to talk a little bit about you so that people can understand how credible of a source and how lucky we are to have you here with us today. You've been at Family Search for 20 plus years, and you told me something really funny before we started. What was it, Raymond?
So when I started 25 years ago, there were no computers in the Family Search Library. And so I saw it from the very beginning to where now we're using AI and there's lots of technology and lots of computers, but it's been a fascinating journey to kind of see that from no computers to where we are today. So
that's crazy and mind-blowing. Well, lucky are we, and look at us now having virtual conversations about
it's awesome.
that can help all of us. So you've been at Family Search for 20 plus years, and you manage British, Nordic, and Asia research specialists at the Family History Library. Is that true? Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. And you are accredited in England research, and you grew up doing something that sounds like so much fun, roaming cemeteries with your family. Yep. And that's what sparked your lifelong passion for family history.
Yep. And I do the same with my wife and kids today. We still roam cemeteries. So.
Oh my gosh, we can't wait to hear all about that. But let's jump into things. And for those of you, again, that are joining, let us know what it is, which type of ancestries you're researching, what region of the world are you interested, and also ask questions, ask away. We're going to be answering all of your questions at the end. And again, whether or not it's applicable to Irish ancestry, Raymond told us at the beginning, for those of you just joining us, that lots of what he has to share with us today is applicable to so many different varieties of heritage. Raymond, thank you so much again. And again, ask questions, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be here today. I love Irish research. I love researching immigrant ancestors, and I love New York City. And so you put them all together and it creates a very fun, rewarding experience. Our main objectives today are we're going to learn about some New York City records for helping you find Irish immigrants. But again, it could also apply to other immigrants beyond Ireland. And then we're going to show you how to access those records. But the main goal is for you to search one of those records today. So find one of those websites that we discussed today and start searching for your ancestors to see what you can find. So many of our ancestors came in through New York City. It's estimated that from the 1840s to the 1870s, over 2 million Irish immigrants came into New York City. And at that time, they would have come in through Castle Garden. And then in 1892, they came in through Ellis Island. But it's interesting. Some of the immigrants came into came into New York City just for a short period of time, while others stayed for a long period of time. I want to just quickly share an experience of my own ancestors who entered into Castle Garden, New York City. My great-great-grandmother was 7 years old, and she still remembered, she shared her experience that she wrote down of coming into New York City. When they got to Castle Garden, her father had 5 cents in his pocket, and that's all he had. And the family wanted to go out west, and so they had to stay in New York City for a time. So he got a job. She describes how the family lived in tenement housing. They lived near Castle Garden, and so she could watch the ships coming in and see all the immigrants. While they were there, she had a baby brother who was born. She had an uncle who passed away at age 21. And then after they went to church there, they were involved in the community there. And after a year and a half, her father had earned enough money to then make the journey west. But in that small window of time, that year and a half, they created records. There would have been employment records. He worked for the local railroad company. There would have been church records where they went to church. There was a birth record for her brother, a death record for her uncle, a cemetery record for her uncle. And so even though a lot of our ancestors may have only briefly been in New York City, they still left behind records. So I want to show some possible records that our ancestors could have left. And this is kind of possibilities for our Irish ancestors coming into New York City. They would have all sailed on a ship to New York City. They would have likely met relatives or friends who had immigrated. They may have received help from an immigrant society. They would have likely searched for work or a place to live. They could have set up an account with the Immigrant Savings Bank. They were likely recorded in a city directory. They would have married in a Catholic church or other church. They would have created a marriage certificate. They would have had children, so that would have been recorded in birth certificates. They would have had children baptized in a Catholic or other church. So just right here, there's records. There's passenger lists. There's the fan club, the friend, associates, and neighbors that you would search. There are immigrant society records, occupation, employment records, bank records, city directories, church marriages, New York vital records, and church baptisms. And the list goes on. So again, they would have likely been recorded in a US federal or state census. They may have needed aid or assistance from an almshouse. They would have likely been mentioned in a New York Irish newspaper. They could have searched for family members who had previously immigrated. They could have become a naturalized US citizen. They may have been denied US citizenship. They could have gotten in trouble with the law or had children who got in trouble with the law. They could have left a will, leaving belongings to family members, had a death certificate, or buried in a Catholic cemetery. So again, there's census records, almshouse records, newspapers, info wanted ads, naturalization records, denied citizenship petitions, core or Catholic charities, probate records, vital records, cemetery records, tombstone inscriptions. There's a lot of records that could have been left behind by our immigrant ancestors. So the point is that many records were created for the Irish immigrants. And even if your ancestor didn't stay in New York for long, they still likely would have left records behind. So these records may give vital information for immigrants. A lot of times when people come to the Family Search Library, all they know is that their ancestor came from Ireland. They don't know where in Ireland, they don't know a townland, they don't know a parish, but it makes it very difficult trying to trace your Patrick Murphy or your Mary O'Hara to make sure that you've got the right ancestors that you're researching. What these records do is that they may name a place of origin, so give you an actual county or parish or townland where they came from in Ireland, or it could even name their parents or other relatives in Ireland, and that would help bridge the gap from the United States into Ireland. So these are the records that we're going to cover today. We're going to discuss passenger lists, the Immigrant Savings Bank records, immigration societies, Catholic charities, New York City birth, marriage, and death certificates, body and transit records, Roman Catholic Church records, and New York City almshouses. All of the links that we're going to discuss today are in your handout, and you can go to, and it's step-by-step instructions on how to specifically find those particular records online. So the first one we're going to look at are passenger lists. There are so many passenger lists for immigrants into New York City. Some of them are called the Irish Immigrant Famine Arrival Records from 1846 to 1851. That was during the Great Famine when millions of Irish came into America. There's the Irish Immigration Database, 1846 to 1890. And then there's Castle Garden and Ellis Island passenger lists as well. So this is an example of passenger lists. This is on Ancestry.com. This same database is also on Family Search, and it's on other databases as well. So you can go in, you can search for your ancestor. This is for a John Flanagan. And again, here, it just gives the native country of Ireland, but it does list where they embarked, either from Liverpool or Dublin or Galway, and the name of the ship and the arrival. So then I would want to look at the actual passenger record to see if I could put possible family relationships together. So again, this is a transcript of the immigrant arrival records from 1846 to 1851. This is a child, John Flanagan, who's 2 years old, who departed from Liverpool. He's Irish. So then I'd want to look at the records to see who his parents are. This is the same database on Find My Past. And so I wanted you to know and be aware of that there's multiple databases that have the same records. And so if you're not finding, they're indexed separately or differently. So if you can't find them on Ancestry or Family Search, then go to Find My Past and see if you can find them in their indexes. This is a really neat database. This is the Irish Immigration Database beginning in 1846 and going up to 1890. Those years would cover coming into Castle Garden. And down here it says, the database is compiled directly from the original ship's passenger manifests. It records Irish, English, Scottish, and Welsh immigrants arriving in U.S. ports on many different ships. So this is an awesome, even though it's called the Irish Immigration Database, you can also find your English, Welsh, or Scottish ancestors as well. And this is what a transcript of that would look like. And then down below, you can print the individual passenger list, you can see the full list, or view the ship's manifest. And then Castle Garden, Ellis Island passenger lists, they're on Ancestry.com, they're on FamilySearch.org. This is an example on Family Search. Ellis Island passenger lists, they get better and better. And that's where you're going to find specific information about your Irish ancestor. So for instance, here, for these particular Irish, it says that they were from Belfast. And so now I've got a place of origin. And then in the next column, it says name and complete address of nearest relative or friend in country where they came. So here it gives the son and it gives the exact address in Moss Cottage in Belfast. And then here it says the brother, the sister. So I get a family relationship and I get the exact location of the family living in Belfast, Ireland. So now that I've got the exact location, then I can find other records pertaining to that family. Ancestry.com has this awesome database called Ellis Island Oral Interviews. So anybody, they go from 1892 to 1976, they went and they recorded people who had come in through Ellis Island and they record their experience. And many of them that they recorded were Irish. And so it's really cool. This is the one for Cecilia Flanagan Zillion. Here it shows that she was born in 1905 and she immigrates into Ellis Island. She's from Galway, Ireland. So I've got that specific location where she's from. That's what I'm looking for. And she arrived in 1925 at the age of 18. So in 1994, she was interviewed and she tells her experience about what it was like coming across Ellis Island as an Irish immigrant, and then what was life like once she entered into New York City. It gives fascinating details. This is a 25-minute interview, and there are hundreds of it like it that you can go in and you can actually hear. And even if your ancestor wasn't recorded in this, you can still get an experience of what it was like for an immigrant coming into Ellis Island. One of the best places to go is our own Family Search Wiki. When you go to the wiki site, and again, all of this is in your handout, but you can search for Ireland emigration and immigration, and it has all the different types of links that I've also discussed are all on this wiki page and many more. So a fantastic resource for searching for immigrants from Ireland and as well as from other countries. All right, this is one of my favorite record sets. It's the New York Immigrant Savings Bank. This is a picture of the actual bank itself, and it was set up for Irish immigrants. It did include other immigrants, especially from Germany. A lot of Germans are listed in there. But it began in September 30th, 1850, and that was a key point right during the famine, when a lot of famine immigrants would have come over and they would have set up an account at the Immigrant Industrial Savings Bank. It was a convenient location for many of the Irish neighborhoods. So there's index books that you can go in and identify the name of a depositor and the account number. Those index books run from 1850 to 1880. But the meat of it is the test or the signature books. And these were used to determine the identity of an individual depositor due to a lost or stolen passbook or to set up the account. And so we didn't have, there weren't photographs back then or picture IDs. And so they would use a lot of these description in the signature books. This runs from 1841 to 1945. And they give a wealth of information on the Irish immigrant. So almost 100 years worth of bank records that give fantastic detail. So this is the transcript. These are actual transcripts, and I wanted to show you an example of what you can find in an immigrant savings bank. So this is the account number was 1864 for a John Delaney. This was in 1852 that he set up an account at the Immigrant Savings Bank. It names relative one was his mother. That's what the M stands for, was Margaret Welsh. And his wife was Mary Keegan. That's the W. He was a laborer. It gives his exact address in Williamsburg in Brooklyn. And now it tells me that he's from the county of Kilkenny, which is a key piece that I need to know in order to research him in Ireland. He came across on the ship New World in September 23rd, 1848. And then it says he was a national of Clune, the parish of Lisdowney in County Kilkenny. I get his townland, I get his parish, I get his county. Now, with that information, I can find his church records in Ireland. It also goes on to say that he arrived in New York in 1848, so right during the famine, on the ship New World from Liverpool. That's what the LP stands for. His father lives in Ireland, whose name is William. His mother is dead, and she's Margaret Walsh. He has two brothers in Williamsburg, Patrick and James, and two sisters, one in Ireland, Honora, and one in Williamsburg, Mary. It gives so much family information. It names his parents, it names his siblings, it tells me where they're located. It's phenomenal, the type of information that I got from his bank account. And this isn't a one-off. This is the norm. This is another one for Catherine McGuire, who set up an account in 1851. It gives me the name of her father, Henry, her mother, Catherine, and I get her mother's maiden name. Gives me her exact address, and it tells me that she's from Dublin. She's a native of Dublin who came to this country when a child and returned home and arrived there about 10 years ago. Her parents, so the D is her father has died, and it gives me the name of her mother, Catherine Collet. She's got four brothers that are living: Peter in the East Indies, Henry in Ireland, Arthur in San Francisco, George in Nashville, and one sister, Maria Louisa, who's married to James Olwell. I get this information about her siblings and that they're all over the world. And now, because of this bank account, I know specifically exactly where her siblings were exactly in 1851. I'm going to share one last example. This is a Thomas M. Craig. And so his account number is 1829, but it tells me that I need to look at another account under 3999, and that will give me more information about him. It gives me his relatives, so Mary Craig, who's his mother, Mary Donahue, who's his wife, his address in New York City. He's from Antrim, and then tells me that he's a native of the parish of Raymond in County Antrim, and it's 3 miles from Ballycastle, which is pretty neat that it gives that specific detailed. He arrived in New York about January 1845 per the ship, and it didn't get the whole name of the ship, but it was from Liverpool. His parents are dead. His father, Thomas, was named Thomas, and his mother was Mary Craig. He has 2 brothers in Ireland, John and Archibald, 2 sisters in Ireland, Margaret and Jane, and is married to Mary Donahue, 1 child, Archibald. So again, a wealth of family information that breaks through the brick wall of where did they come from in Ireland and names of family. And I get that from a bank record. They also had these transfer signature books. So they were used when major changes happened to the account or a new passport book was issued. Then they had additional records that were created. So records from 1850 to 1883 are indexed and transcribed at Ancestry.com and at the Family Search Library on FamilySearch.org. Original records go from 1841 to 1945, and they are held at the Family Search Library as well as the New York Public Library, and they are phenomenal. So 100 years, if you had an ancestor that came into New York even for a short period of time, I would look to see if they set up an account at the Immigrant Industrial Savings Bank. And then this is what the database looks like on Ancestry.com from 1850, 1883, and then we also have that on Family Search. The next group of record sets that I wanted to discuss was the immigration societies and Catholic charities. The Catholic charities in New York were phenomenal. And it wasn't just New York City, it was Boston, it was in Philadelphia. You always look for the Catholic charities. There was one that was set up called Lincoln Hall. And again, there are many Catholic charities that were set up. There's the movie Cabrini, where she went in and she also set up a Catholic charity. The ones that I'm going to discuss today are the Lincoln Hall Society and the Irish Mission at Watson House. But there are many others. These 2 specifically, the records have been digitized. You can find them online. And then there are also some state-aided immigration schemes that I'm also going to discuss. So Lincoln Hall was called Lincoln Hall Society for the Protection of Destitute Roman Catholic Children of New York City. They were not orphans. A lot of the times they got in trouble. They were skipping school. There were issues going on in home. Maybe, one of the parents ran off or one of the parents had died, but most of them were not orphans. They were resident identification cards that were created from 1880 to 1938. And these records are awesome. So, but I will, just one word of advice is that some of the information on here is not exactly 100% correct. So their birth date might be off by, a few months or a couple years. The names of if there were, especially some of the Italian ones, the names might be off as well. It wasn't just for Irish. A lot of it was for Catholic. So there's a lot of Catholic Irish, a lot of Italian Catholics that were in here as well. But it gives the names of the parents. So here he's 14, born in November. His father was William. His mother was Margaret Gallagher. They were Catholic. They were Irish. And then it says so William was sent to Lincoln Hall. And here you can see he was a wild child, and that's why he was sent there. Down here, it tells me that his parents were married in St. Peter's Church in Brooklyn, which is, again, gives me more information about the family. So here it says, he and his companions broke into a baker, gasoline station, and Protestant church and stole $36 in cash. He was arrested once for a minor offense and let go. He attended St. Brendan's School, 7th grade. His brothers are Lawrence, 16, Francis, an infant, and his sisters are Catherine, 4, and Mary, 12. I get his names of his parents. I get his family members. And then it tells me why he was sent to Lincoln Hall. This is a Richard Cunningham, and same thing. It tells me he's Catholic, gives me the address, tells me the date that he was sent to Lincoln Hall. He was arrested 3 times by the Board of Education for truancy and then paroled. And on the back of the form, it gives me the names of his parents and his 2 sisters, Alice and Clara, and gives me their ages. So again, their ages may be off by a couple of years, so you just need to be mindful of that. But sometimes you might find their health records in here, vaccination records. Just sometimes there's letters that were sent back and forth between the parents and the school. But fascinating stories about a lot of these immigrants who came and were sent to Lincoln Hall through this Catholic charity. Again, different types of letters that you may find in there, but a lot of awesome records. These records they have been full text search, and they're available at familysearch.org from 1880 to 1938. The second group or record set that I want to discuss is the Irish Mission at Watson House. This is an actual image of the Watson House, and it was set up to assist female immigrants from Ireland to New York City, and the building still stands today. But it includes over 100,000 Irish female immigrants to New York City from 1883 to 1954. So that time period covers some of Castle Garden, and then the rest would be Ellis Island. But so again, it's specifically to help Irish women. This is the transcript. So this was in 1899, and it names the immigrant, and it tells me where they're from. So this it gives me a key piece of information that I now know where specifically in Ireland, or at least in Irish County, where they came from. Their age, the name of the ship they came on, and then to whom they were going, or to whom they were sent. So for instance, we've got this Maggie Dowd from Roscommon. She's going to a Mary Banning who was residing at 121 East 89th Street in New York. So then I could research, well, who was Mary Banning? She was likely a relative, or she could have been a family friend. But now I've got a place of where they went, and I could research them to see why they were going there. Here we've got a Nora and a Kate Byron, 20 and 18-year-old girls who were sent to Mary Byron at this address. And so again, they've got the same surname. She's likely a relative. But these records are really cool. You can go to the website, and this is in the handout. You can read a lot about the Irish Mission at Watson House and how they help these girls, and they kind of help them to kind of get on their feet and to start a new life after arriving from Ireland. And then the last one that I want to talk about for this particular section is the state-aided immigration schemes from the Crown Estates in Ireland. So we actually have some books, and I don't think it was just for these locations, but in Ireland, a lot of the estates there, they would specifically pay for their residents to come over to specific places in America. So the ones that we have in the library are from these various estates. But it was fascinating that what we could see from these estates is that they would actually send a lot of the people from the exact same town, from the exact same parish. A lot of them were going to the same location in New York. In this particular area here, a lot of them were going to Buffalo, New York. And so the reason why I wanted to bring this up is you always search for the friends, the associates, and neighbors. It was never random. It was never, I'm just going to go to New York City and get off the ship and just meet people. A lot of the times they would go to places where they knew people, where they had family members that had gone earlier, or friends from the exact same town. And we can prove it from these state-aided immigration schemes from Ireland, where they were specifically naming the location in America where they were sent to. And then this is the book that for these particular ones in Ireland that you can get access to at the library, but many, many more are only available in Ireland. New York City has great birth, marriage, and death certificates. So look at these dates. The New York City births go from 1846, which was right during the famine. So if they came over to America and then they had another child right as they came, they would have had a birth certificate for that child. The New York City marriage certificates predate the famine, beginning in 1829, and the New York City deaths beginning in 1795 through 1949. So the time period is phenomenal, especially for immigrants. And that's all immigrants. That's just not the Irish immigrants. The marriages and deaths contain Irish immigrants who came during the Great Famine and may name their parents. So this is an example of a birth certificate. James Edward, and I get his last name. He's living in Brooklyn, and then it gives me the name of the father and the name of the mother. Okay, and his mother was Irish. So again, great information from the certificates. And then this is cool because it gets the mother's maiden name. So I get the names of the parents and I get her maiden name. Okay, this is our marriage certificates from 1829 to 1938. This was in 1879. This was the grooms. These were the brides. And I wanted to kind of just share that for the grooms, they named the date of marriage, their name, residence, age, color, occupation, birthplace, and names of parents. And it was the same thing for the brides. And so the importance of looking for an Irish marriage is that you may get the names of the parents from that marriage certificate. A lot of the times it will only say Ireland. So I'm highlighting here where it just says Ireland. And then over here, it names their parents. So you can see how many of them named a parent. So some of them didn't, but a lot of them did. And then the death certificates are pretty awesome because, again, they will name parents. This is an example of a Margaret O'Reilly, and she was born in Ireland. It gives me the names of her father and the name of her mother. So I've got a James McGrath and a Mary Fay. So what's cool about this is that she was born in 1838 in Ireland before there were any birth certificates. And there would have been church records, but on the death certificate, I now get the names of her parents. So no birth certificate, but death certificate, I get the names of her parents. And then this is an example of New York City deaths, 1794 to 1949. You can see all the Irish that were there who passed away. And it's going to depend on the time period of when they died. A little bit later is when you get a lot of the names of the parents. But even the names of those who came during the famine, you will likely find the names of their parents on their death certificate. These particular ones don't name the parents, but they do name the Catholic cemetery where they are buried. And sometimes on those tombstone inscriptions, you can get more information. So along with the vital records, was the body in transit records from 1858 or 9 to 1894. And these are records where they recorded the transportations of bodies in and out of Manhattan. What's interesting is in Manhattan, they stopped burying people there in the 1840s. So after 1840, if you died in Manhattan, you had to be buried in Brooklyn or Queens or other places in the surrounding area. So they had prohibited the burial in Manhattan after that point. But the body in transit records were used to track and prevent disease and death in the city. So this is what the records look like. These are digitized, they're online. And this is the type of information that you would get. So the place of death, their names, these particular ones are Irish, and it gives the place of interment where they were buried, as well as the name and address of the applicant, who would likely be family members. So again, it's another record set that may provide clues to finding your ancestor. These are indexed on Ancestry.com as well as FamilySearch.org. And this kind of shows you what they look like in these databases. The birth, marriage, and death certificates are also, a lot of them are on FamilySearch.org, and you can see, so we've got over 2.7 million births from 1846 to 1909, over almost 3 million marriages, almost 6 million deaths recorded during that time period. So Family Search is a great place to go and search for New York City birth, marriage, and death certificates. All right, so now for the church records. The church records are the Roman Catholic baptisms, marriages, and church congregational records. So again, a lot of them were Catholic. They come over from Ireland, they come to New York City, and they then assimilate and are part of the Catholic churches in New York. Find My Past has done an excellent job of going in and indexing and transcribing all of these records for the Catholic church records in New York City. FindMyPast.com is a subscription website, but you can get access to it at an affiliate library for Family Search or at a local Family Search center. So I can go to the site, I can just type in New York Roman Catholic, and down below I get the Roman Catholic parishes, baptisms, and the marriages, and the congregational records. So they have almost 2.2 million baptisms and over 1 million marriages in New York City. So this is what a transcript looks like. So this was a baptism in 1852, so right during the famine, after the famine, for Michael Cunningham. And here I've got the name of his parents. His mother's last name was Courtney, and his father's last name was Cunningham. And it tells me the parish where they were attending church, which is great. So now I know exactly where they worshiped. And then I get both the parents' names and their first name and their surnames. This is a transcript of a marriage. So a marriage date in 1852 of a Michael Cunningham. It gives me the name of his spouse, and it tells me the church of where they married in Basilica of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral. So church records, again, are awesome because Find My Past has brought many of them to light, that they're indexed and you can search for them. So the last record set that we're going to discuss today is the New York City almshouses. Almshouses were institutions who were offered to help aid the sick and the poor. What's interesting is that many of them were set up. So a lot of times if the Irish came over and they fell on hard times, they could have gone to an almshouse or another institution to receive help. And these types of almshouses could have included workhouses, they could have included hospitals, military barracks, or asylums. The almshouses were required to record details about the individuals who came to receive help, which was great because it helps us as researchers to be able to find more information about our family. So the time period covers before, during, and after the Irish famine. And they include almshouse ledgers from 1758 to 1952, and a census of inmates in almshouses and poorhouses from 1830 to 1920. So a lot of the times we're talking about the immigrants who came during the famine or afterwards, but there are records like the almshouse records, some of the death records that capture the Irish when they came earlier, when they came in the 1700s. A lot that came in the 1700s were Presbyterians. They were from the 6 counties in Northern Ireland, but some of those immigrants may also be found in these almshouse ledgers. So I want to show an example of, this is the census of inmates in almshouses. This is a record for a Mary O'Reilly. And what's really cool is it gives me the exact birthplace in Fermanagh. So now in Enniskillen, I've got the parish, I've got the county, and she was born about 1825. So in 1825 in County Fermanagh, there are no birth certificates. But with this information, I can now go and search to see if there might be a Catholic baptism in that specific parish for a Mary O'Reilly. And then over here, and again, it tells me that her parents are also born from County Fermanagh. And then to the left is the actual document that you can click on that will give additional information about the family. Here's another Mary O'Reilly. She was 84 years old. She was born in 1822 in Ireland. And it gives me the name of her father, Thomas O'Reilly, and the birthplace in Ireland. So interestingly, in the previous record, I get the name of the location where she came from, but I don't get the names of her parents. But in the next, with another immigrant, I don't get where she came from, but I do get the name of her father and the name of her mother. So I've got Thomas O'Reilly, Catherine Caffrey from Ireland. And sometimes you might get both, and sometimes you might not get either of them. But they're still great to search and see what you can find. But this Mary O'Reilly, in 1906, she came to get help at this almshouse, and she had to record her birth year as well as the names of her parents. So again, in 1822, there is no birth certificate, but I now have the names of her parents, and I could follow it up with other additional records in New York City. So this is an example. These are all Mary Rileys from Ireland. And here it has their birth year. And you can see how some of them will name the parents. So there's our Thomas O'Reilly and Catherine Caffrey, Michael O'Reilly and Anne Brennan. And then down below, another Mary Riley names her parents. But look at all the other Mary Rileys who do not name their parents. However, what they do name, or they do give, is specific locations where they came from in Ireland, which again is a gold mine because now I've got the exact place in Ireland where they came from. Mary Riley is a very, very common name in Ireland. And without knowing a specific place, it'd be very difficult to track her in Ireland or to know exactly where she came from. But because I searched the almshouse ledgers and found that these different Mary O'Reillys came from, I could do additional research. And now I've got specific locations in Ireland where they were from. So this could be, some of it could be an actual townland. It could be the parish where they came from. But phenomenal information from these almshouse records with either names of parents or a specific location where they came from. And then unfortunately, you may get some that just say Ireland, that don't name the parents and that don't give any specific information where they particularly came from. This is an example of the almshouse ledgers. This is an Eliza O'Connor who was admitted at 45 and discharged at 48. So it's interesting. So she came in and she admitted herself into this almshouse, and she was there for 3 years that she needed assistance and needed help, which is interesting to kind of see during this time period. So on an 18, so it was, the admission was 1848 and the discharge was 1851. She would be there on the 1850 census. It would have said that her location would have been in an almshouse ledger. So where to search for these records? I can search on Ancestry.com, or I can also search for New York City Municipal Archives digital collection. The New York City Municipal Archives, we're going to talk about that in part 2, which is next Thursday. But they have a lot of great records that are digitized. You can access them for free. And they have the original records to a lot of these almshouse ledgers that are there. Ancestry.com, though, has the indexes. So you can search the indexes on Ancestry, and then you can view the original images on at the New York Municipal Archives site. So I want to do a recap of what we discussed today, because we've learned about Irish immigrants to New York City and records that may name a place of origin or names of parents or other relatives. We have specifically discussed the passenger lists. We've discussed the New York Immigrant Savings Bank records. We've discussed the Catholic charities like Lincoln Hall and the Irish Watson House Mission Home located in the Battery in New York City. We've also discussed New York City birth, marriage, and death certificates that go back at an early time period that would capture a lot of the famine immigrants who either got married or died or had children who were born right after the famine. We talked about the Catholic Church records that are available on Find My Past that document where your ancestor went to church, where they got married. And a lot of the times on their birth records, it will name the parents. But it may give, knowing the name of the church where they went to or the parish could give you additional clues by researching other records that were created by the Catholic Church. And then finally, we discussed the almshouse records, which could have included hospitals or workhouses or other places where people went to receive help. And when they went to receive help, they could have named where they came from specifically in Ireland, or could have also named their parents. Okay, so again, what I want you to do is pick one of these records that we've discussed and search for your immigrant ancestor in them today and see what you can find. All right, thank you. Next Thursday, we will be going over part 2, which we will discuss many other records like the info wanted ads and what you can find in Catholic cemeteries, probate records, naturalization records, and more that you can find for your Irish immigrant ancestor.
Raymond, this has been so helpful. Everyone is like, where's the handout in the comments? And for those of you watching that are wondering, what are we talking about? Every time there is a presentation from someone like Raymond, they go and they outline a lot of the key points from these presentations in a handout or a document, and we link it in the comments for you so that you can use it at your convenience and apply everything that you learned today. Raymond, we have quite a bit of questions. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so we have a question from Ryan, and he asked, what if my Irish immigrant came in 1835? Where can he look?
So they still have passenger lists. A lot of them began in 1820 that he might be able to search for. He would have likely come in through Castle Garden. If he stayed in New York, he would have been on an 1840 census or an 1850 census. So I would search those census records, especially 1840, because that was 5 years after he came. But those same records would apply to the almshouse records he could search for. At that time period, if he stayed, he could have had a marriage certificate or a death certificate.
Oh, wow.
But all of those records, most of those records that I discussed would still cover an Irish ancestor who came in 1835. Again, it's going to depend on how long they stayed. If they stayed for a year, you should be able to find them in some records. If they came, and some of them came and maybe they only stayed for a month and then went on to where their relatives were staying in other parts of America.
Wow, there is just a vast list of resources, and you went through so many of them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, we have Jean Alcock who asked, any suggestions on how to read Irish records in Ireland?
So again, if you know, you can going to Ireland, you're going to be more successful if you know the exact location. And that's why I tried to show records that might name a townland or name a county or a parish. And then once you get there, a lot of the Irish records, they're written in English. There are some, though, that are very hard to read. Some of them are in Latin when you get to some of the earlier church records. But a lot of them, like the birth, marriage, death certificates, those are you could, those are not difficult to read. Where it's difficult once you get to Ireland is if the church record actually exists. For a lot of the Catholic records, it's a lot of them don't start until the 1820s. And it really depends on the area. If they came from Dublin, they will likely have records before 1820s. Other places, they don't start till the 1840s, but you really need to know the specific location in Ireland. And then it comes with just practice. So you look at some of the church records, and a lot of times you'll get the names, like a baptism, the names of the parents, and then you'll get the witnesses or the godparents. And sometimes it's hard to read because it's the record's faded, but a lot of times you can pick it up just through practice and going over multiple records. A lot of our missionaries that come help, they learn through practice and just kind of going through those records.
That's so neat. Thank you. Okay, so I think that this comment from David, he says a lot of early information is limited. Much that's still around isn't online yet. And I think that that's kind of like the sentiment, just generally speaking, whether it's Irish ancestry or German ancestry. Any thoughts on that?
Well, so it's absolutely true. Most of my Irish ancestors came from County Antrim, and they came at an early time period where, there aren't a lot of records. They came in the 1700s. There's not a lot of church records that exist. One of the best record sets that is not online are the estate records. And I shared just a little bit of the state-aided immigration schemes in Ireland, where they were actually helping support people from there who were living off the land to go over into America. There's a lot of records like that. The estate records would name the tenements who were living there. A lot of that is not online, it's not digital, and it's only available in Ireland. But there is still a lot of good stuff. And a lot of the Presbyterian records are not online. So if your ancestor came from, up north and they were Presbyterian, a lot of those records are still only available at the Public Record Office in Northern Ireland that you would have to go to. So it is true, especially for a lot of the earlier stuff. There's still a lot that is only available in Ireland.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much for such a thorough response. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. Okay, here's a random question, but I thought it was totally relevant. Was it common for your Irish ancestor to have a servant?
To have a servant, it depends on how, if this is in Ireland, if they were well-to-do, then they could have had a servant, or if they were a landowner, or if people were paying rent to them, then yes, they could have had a servant. And then same thing over in America. If they were doing really well, then sure, they might have had a servant. But it really just depends on the prosperity of the ancestor, both in Ireland as well as in America.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving forward, we have Athename Porter from YouTube. She says, are Porter and Cowan Irish names? Is there a source that shows what areas have particular surnames and where they resided prior to 1840? Any thoughts on that?
That is a great question. And the best place to go is johngrenham.com. It's his, I think the official name is Irish Times, but it's johngrenham.com. And in there, the first thing you can do is you can type in the name Cowan, or you can type in the name Porter, and it will show you, based off of records, where that surname is most common all throughout Ireland. And then you can put in Porter and Cowan together, and it will tell you the commonalities of both surnames in a particular area in Ireland. So on johngrenham.com, that's mainly for the 1850s, but a lot of those people were there before the 1850s. And so the families had resided on the land or paid or farmed the land for many, many years. And so even though it's geared around the 1850s, 1860s, there are still, I would still count it towards the 1840s as this is where the Cowans were from, this is where the Porters were from. But johngrenham.com, it is a subscription site, but you get free access in a local family search center. But it's awesome for seeing how common of an Irish name it is in Ireland, and the likelihood of where those Cowans or Porters came from.
Thank you.
Sometimes they're really common, and other times they're not. It really depends.
Well, can you spell that for us? Because I'm not sure that I would know how to spell that.
Yeah, so it's all one word, John, and then Grenham is GRENHAM.com. johngrenham.com. And the first thing that comes up is the surname database that you can just type in the surname and see where they came from. johngrenham.com is actually one of the best resources for researching your ancestors in Ireland. But that question, that was a great question, because it's awesome for finding surnames.
Well, thank you, Athena May Porter, for asking that question. We'd love it. And keep those questions coming. We still have some time. So we have Katie, and Katie is asking, any similar talk about Irish immigrants in Chicago?
So yes, and Chicago has one of the best, and on Ancestry.com, they have one of the best databases for Irish families in Chicago. And I think it's titled Irish Families of Chicago, but it is awesome. New York doesn't have one of those, Chicago does. And so that's on Ancestry.com, and I would search the Irish Immigrants in Chicago database on that site. But the same thing, if they were Catholic, there are Catholic charities in Chicago, there are likely bank records in Chicago, birth, marriage, death certificates. So I focused on New York City because that was kind of the one of the main places, but it's the same, the records, the strategies is very similar for Chicago, for Philadelphia, Boston, Baltimore. They have bank records just like New York does. They're not as good, but they still have bank records that recorded immigrants coming into those areas.
Oh my goodness. I am just so excited. I don't even have Irish ancestry, but I'm like, all of this applies probably to my German ancestry. This is so great. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of questions just about the live stream. Barbara is asking, is this recorded? I just found it and wanted to watch from the beginning. Absolutely. Everyone that's watching, every Thursday we have a live stream, but these live streams are available after. And get this, Roots Tech by Family Search, so rootstech.org, is a wonderful website. I think it's probably the largest website, or excuse me, the biggest website with the website with the biggest number of classes and presentations from people like the individuals that are presenting every Thursday at Family Search. And they're not only from Family Search, they're from so many other entities, and it's all free, rootstech.org. And so yes, sorry, long answer, but short answer, yes, this is available after the fact, and you can tune in and watch these. But better yet, go to rootstech.org and sign up for Roots Tech, which is the largest global family history event in the world. Invite your friends and make sure that you tune in, because I think we're like 40 plus days away from that. And so we have so many presenters that are excited to share more information with you. And it's virtual. And if you're wanting to come in person to Salt Lake City, you can do that too. Okay, sorry. I'm like just so excited about Roots Tech. Okay, Karen says, I got here late and want to rewatch this. And then we have Iron Rod Press. She says, now I wish I had Irish immigrants to check out these records. See, it's contagious. Okay. And then we have some people just expressing their gratitude. Listening from Montana, thank you for sharing your knowledge. You are very appreciated.
Thank you.
We have Jolene saying, very helpful. I'm ready to jump into a couple of databases. And yes, we have Kat who says, thank you, great information. So for those of us that have clung on to watching all of this and hearing all of this information that you have for us, just if you were to say, remember this from out of everything that I shared, what would be the main takeaway for us today?
So I would go to wiki.familysearch.org and type in tracing your, just almost the same title, just Irish immigrants in New York City. And everything that I talked about and we'll talk about next week is all on that wiki page. There's links that take you exactly to the records. that you can find. So again, all the information has been compiled, so you don't need to go in and try to remember all of it. But go to the wiki page, wiki.familysearch.org, and type in Irish immigrants in New York City.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much. And Raymond, we're just so glad that we had some of your time today. We know that you're busy at the Family Search Library. And for those of you that are wondering, like, how could I get some help? We have Family Search Library consultations for 15 minutes of a research expert's time. You can sign up for that. Go to familysearch.org or just Google Family Search Library. And people like Raymond are so happy to help you for free. Everyone, thank you. And Raymond, we are so lucky to have had you sharing just your wisdom with us. And someone commented earlier, I wish you would have pronounced all of those names with an Irish accent.
Well, I've even
the
learned
next time you're going to have to pronounce everything with an Irish accent.
That would have been
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
Yeah.
Have a fantastic week. We appreciate all of you. And join us next Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time for our next class for part 2, right, Raymond?
Yep, part 2. Yep.
Part 2. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week. Thank you. Bye.